up, guys?
What you think about when you're born into a fire? Let 'em burn it out. Sell 'em to the richest buyer. They wanna let the world decay. They tell us lies and fade away, fade away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. Listen up now, because we're never dropping out. Beat the odds, beat the big house. The brains are bigger than the doubt. We've been thinking for ourselves, never let the truth fade away. This is bigger than ourselves, we won't let the world burn away, burn away. We feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To blame, haters face the world's mistakes. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. And we feel betrayed. We were raised to lose the race. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway. To blame, haters face the world's mistakes. Wake at the back of the pack, kill it anyway.
Hey daddies, it's me, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I wanted to make this video because I
The
wanted
Linda
to thank
Binda.
you for
Are you-
watching
are you
Cold
listening?
Beer Confessionals with Will Bird. I think that's just incredible. I've watched a few episodes and I'm just like very intrigued. But you know what I'm most intrigued in is Big Daddy's meat stick. I heard that it's very thick, like a good old German sausage. You know, Linda and her coochie loves that. mind. Let's not go there. Anyways, I hope you have a good show and enjoy it as you can. There's a lot of weird things that go on, especially when it comes from the realm of Linda Bindaland. So, enjoy the show. Thanks for watching. Peace out.
Welcome, everybody. I am Will Bird, and this is the Cold Beer Confessional. Thank you for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me. That was Linda Binda, okay? That's what we got going on. That's Linda Binda, the Linda Binda from TikTok. I don't know if you guys have seen this guy. He's been making the rounds on social media, and he seems to have struck a chord with some people. I like him so far, I guess. He's actually running in Maine, but I'll let him give you his spiel. His last name, his name's Graham, or is that his first name or his last name? I can't remember. Here we go. He'll probably say Grant Planter. I thought it was Graham. I thought it was Graham.
Hey, Graham Plantner here, running for Senate up in Maine.
Graham Plantner. Let's slow it down, because the subtitles say Grant, but I thought his name was Graham. Here you go.
Hey, Graham Plantner here, running for Senate up in Maine. I'm running against Susan Collins, AIPAC, Super PACs, the entire DC establishment. Now, I know that Janet Mills just got in this race, and you're probably receiving a mountain of fundraising texts and emails. I'm pretty new to this politics thing, but I've learned something over the past few weeks. When you donate to Chuck Schumer, when you donate to the big Democratic Super PACs, what they do is share their lists with candidates that they like. They put their thumb on the scale. And what they do is they use access to those lists of donors, those lists of people who have given, like yourself, and they use that to give it to the candidates that they like Janet Mills.
So that's one of his messages. The one that went viral for him was this one. He's running in Maine. He's a former U.S. Army veteran, and I think he served in the Marine Corps as well. I'm not positive on that. But he had a video that went viral about, like, we have to be able to listen to both sides and find some type of common ground. Like, we're too divided. So basically, there's actually a really funny moment in this video. Someone stands up and is like, I don't want the illegals getting all my money. And he's like, did you listen to her point? And people are like, no, fuck her. Like, it's funny. But here's the video and viral.
So what's your plan for the illegals that are in this state that get free benefits? They don't.
So the woman says, obviously he's running on a Democratic platform. The woman says, so what's your plan for the illegals in this state that get all the free benefits? Where are these illegals? Just fucking living it up, dude. Balling out.
So what's your plan for the illegals that are in this state that get free benefits? They don't.
If you listen to what she was saying, no, just hear me out.
Did you hear that? He says, if you listen to what she's saying, no. That's how I feel right now.
If you listen to what she was saying, no, just hear me out. If you listen to what she was saying, at its core, she's angry about the exact same things you are. People are propagandized, people are misinformed, but people are not stupid. And we shouldn't treat them as such. People are...
I don't know about it. People are propagandized, people are misinformed, but I think it's because they're stupid.
They're angry because they know they're being screwed.
Yes, they are angry. People can tell they're being screwed. The problem is we have other people talking to the stupid people saying, well, that's the person screwing. That illegal family next door, that's the one screwing you, not me.
They might get lied to. They might get taken in. If somebody robs your neighbor's house, you don't go over there and laugh at them afterwards.
But I have a problem with this, okay? I understand this. That's a great example. If someone robs your neighbor's house, you don't go laugh at them afterwards. But if my neighbor's house gets robbed, and then my neighbor runs into the robber on the street and votes for the robber to rob them again, and the robber's saying, I'm going to rob you, and they vote to let the robber rob them again, And then when they see the robber rob them, and the robber says, I robbed you, and they're like, this is what I voted for. Then the robber leaves. Then they go to the immigrant family next door, and they're like, you robbed me. That's the problem, I think.
They've been taken advantage of. And that's what this is. People are being robbed. They're being robbed of their critical thinking. They're being robbed of their empathy.
It goes back further than Trump. Trump was the guy who capitalized on it the best. And you have to admit, he's kind of, like, even from the outside, it's funny to watch him, right? I wouldn't say he's charismatic. He's weird and awkward. And the things that I think are funny for him to say and ridiculous for him to say, he's hitting a pain point for them and blaming it on someone that has nothing to do with it. It goes back further. I remember long before Trump. I remember like Obama days, right? No one was even talking about Trump. They're coming after your guns. They're going to do FEMA camps, videos and emails at the time. Like someone in our chat last night said, well, Obama's not a Christian. That was an email chain that went around. That was before like social media was that big. Trump was the first person to capitalize on it really well.
The answer to that is not shame. The answer to that is not anger. The answer to that is empathy and compassion.
Thank you.
Empathy and compassion. So that is what he's preaching. It's hard for me to get on that train right now, okay? Very hard. But we'll grab some more of his videos because he is making a splash, whether you like him or not.
Graham Plattner here, running for U.S. Senate up in Maine against Susan Collins. Behind me is Canada, where they have universal health care. But on this side of the border, I'm up here in northern Maine talking to rural Mainers struggling to make it work. We need to build a political movement in this state that we have not seen in generations.
I haven't been this inspired in a long time.
Well, thanks.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate it.
You're gonna be my first vote.
Oh, well, thank you.
Copperhead Road's going to give me a copyright strike, ain't it?
Years, bitter and disillusioned, watching my community fall apart, all because somebody in Silicon Valley or on Wall Street is making trillions of dollars.
I do think Trump and MAGA, his followers and supporters, have pushed the pendulum so far, it has to swing the other way. I don't know who stops this pendulum, but the next person that wins from the Democrats and the power the Democrats hold is going to be so far to the left, MAGA is going to lose their fucking minds. They're going to be like, this is communism.
You can't get done what you want to in 18 to 24 years, maybe give somebody else a try. Getting health care. It's the thing that like literally changed my life, and I know it can change other people's.
And I honestly think, I know that the military leans right, sometimes really hard right, some of them like hardcore Trump supporters. But a lot of people join the military for literal socialism. Like you get a paycheck, you get a house, you get fed, you get a job, they tell you what to do, and as long as you do it, you're rewarded with whatever you need.
Alone, the richest people in America went from holding $5 trillion in wealth to holding $6.5 trillion in wealth. $1.5 trillion in wealth in 1 year. They were already incredibly rich. But the structure they've created, the system that they have built, is making them wealthier and wealthier, and we watch that happen while our hospitals collapse, while our education system collapses, while housing prices go through the roof, and while the prices of daily commodities that we need to...
It's not great. It's not great right now, that's for sure.
Continue to get more expensive while wages remain stagnant. The only way that we change it is from the ground up.
Graham Plattner, former Army and Marine. New Mexico Senator Martin Heinrich is right. We need more candidates like Graham Plattner of Maine. We need more candidates like this. And then there's one of his campaign videos. In Collins' hometown, Plattner brings his grassroots pitch to the county. I just can't. What's sad is a lot of these races are name recognition. People keep asking me, like, I've got a really bad mayor. He's a good guy. Seems like a good guy to hang out with. I don't agree with all his religious push on the, but like our mayor keeps getting elected. Why? Because it's name recognition, right? He was a football coach and he's a bus driver and he worked at the YMCA and he's a teacher and most of the people voting either went to school with them or he was one of their teachers because he's been a teacher in this county for so many years. They just see his name. They're like, I recognize that because he said something there. He's like, well, if you go to do a job for 16 years and you still haven't gotten any of it done, I think it's time to give somebody else a try. But I think a lot of people vote on name recognition. They get there, they see the ballot, and they're like, I recognize that. So if you can't break through and basically go viral in the area where you're trying to campaign, you're not going to win.
I have lived what support can do for a person. It doesn't make somebody lazy. It doesn't make them not want to work. It gives them the ability to take risks, and it gives them the ability to actually follow their dreams and do what they want to do. And when people do that, they build things. They create things. I often think...
Oh, shit, I thought you were talking about my accent.
I often think about what Eastern Maine would look like if every hard-working person I knew just had health care. What would they be able to do? What would they be able to build? What are the businesses we would see? What is the art we would be seeing?
My parents died too young and suddenly. And oftentimes I think back how different their life could have been, how much more time I would have had with them if they hadn't been afraid of how expensive healthcare is. There are so many times. I do it too. It's so ingrained in me that I've got VA health coverage now, and I still think, oh, fuck, what's this going to cost instantly?
Created. We would live in a different world, and we have the ability to do that.
Axios Super PAC launches $250,000 campaign defending Susan Collins on government shutdown. Uh-oh, we got a boat video. What is this? Not going to play? I remember when I watched Barack Obama speak at the 2024 Democratic Convention, I felt so much hope. Oh, maybe it's just, it isn't a video. Maybe just the sound's broken. Maine State Council of Machinists endorses Graham Plattner.
We will win the primary. We will win the general. And we will show this country the way forward, because as goes Maine, so goes the nation.
Maine is a special place, and our future depends on protecting it. I'll fight for urgent climate action and defend the Clean Air and Clean Waters Act, because strengthening these laws is more important than ever. Graham Plattner draws another overflow crowd in Brewer. Despite all of Susan Collins' concerns, Russ Vaught, who she voted to confirm, still went ahead and fired a boatload of hardworking Americans. They actually, hold on. Of all the places they could have went and all the things that they could have done during the shutdown, you know, Trump has a lot of power during the shutdown, like he's been bragging about. And Project 2025, Russell Vaught, or whatever is, however you say it, he's got a lot of big ideas. The one place they went was after special ed education. Well, special ed, I guess. On Friday, the Trump administration fired most employees at the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services. The Department of Education office is tasked with protecting the rights of millions of children with disabilities across the country and ensuring they get an education. Jeff Bennett discussed more with Laura Meckler, national education writer for the Washington Post. And we're going to focus now on some particular layoffs that were announced this weekend at the Department of Education. On Friday, the Trump administration fired most of the employees of the Office of Special Education and Rehabilitative Services. The office is tasked with protecting the rights of some 7.5 million children with disabilities across the country and ensuring they get a fair education. Laura Meckler from the Washington Post says, what this office does is administers a very important federal law called IDEA, I-D-E-A, the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. And what that does is provide funding, and it has requirements for school districts to provide a free and appropriate education to students with disabilities. So it's a $15 billion program, something that a lot of school districts really rely on, and that money is still flowing as far as we know. But the point of this office is essentially to oversee this program. It's a very big program to make sure that the states and school districts are following the law, to answer questions when states have them about the program, can we do this or can we do that? And essentially to provide oversight. So essentially the money is still going out, allegedly, but without any kind of guarantees and controls that were used to being in place when we're talking about billions of dollars. Why go after special ed? Like, what the fuck? Why is that a main target of this administration? Trump's mass firing strike a hammer blow against Americans with disabilities. Let's see, is that what this is on?
7 of the second Trump administration. The federal government has been shut down for nearly 2 weeks now, and there's no real reason to think this is going to end anytime soon. The House isn't even set to meet again for another week. The Senate will vote on a clean funding bill again tomorrow night, and it's expected to fail for the 8th time. And for the first time in our country, the White House has responded to a shutdown by seeing it as a window to fire thousands of federal workers. Those cuts have decimated the Department of Education, specifically the staff working on special education services, as well as staff at the CDC. Within a day, the White House began walking back some of those CDC firings. Here's what Speaker Mike Johnson said today about the cuts.
We know the president before with mass layoffs, so we are also learning there were significant cuts to staff at the special education services. Are you comfortable with those cuts?
I haven't seen the specifics of that, and I don't know. I do know that...
Of course. We need you to answer this question. I don't know anything about it.
Each of the cabinet secretaries were asked to assist OMB to determine what the most essential programs are. And
yeah, but the problem is the qualification of our cabinet secretary in charge of these people is she married the guy that started wrestling. So you cannot console me and say like, oh, well, the president didn't just make these decisions. He actually talked to the cabinet secretaries in charge of these divisions. Yeah, it's the lady whose husband does wrestling. I don't trust her to make those recommendations either.
And what the priorities are for the policies and all of that. And I've been so busy on all this, I've not had a chance to dig into the details of each division and how it's happened.
Johnson also warned we could be headed toward one of the longest shutdowns so far. Meanwhile, Vice President J.D. Vance said there will be deeper cuts to the federal workforce the longer this whole thing drags on. But the military...
This is almost like a hostage situation. Like they are to try to get the Democrats to break. And they say, oh, we'll circle back around to those, you know, the insurance stipends and grants and shit. We'll get back around to lowering premiums later. We just want this clean funding bill. They're never coming back around to it.
Will not miss a paycheck. President Trump ordered the Pentagon to repurpose some of its research funding to pay members of the armed services. But some are questioning if that's even legal. While the Oh shit. Today, every single fucking news agency in America that covers the Pentagon, except for one, told the Pentagon to get fucked with their loyalty pledge. Basically, Pete Hegseth tried to describe it as they got to wear badges and they're not allowed to just wander around and steal store. Like, that's not happening anyways. If you've ever been to the Pentagon, everybody has a badge, everybody has escort. Everybody's doing this already. That's a lie. The important part was whether it's classified, unclassified, or never been classified, you cannot report on anything inside the Pentagon unless it's got the approval of the Pentagon. Okay? So basically what this says is you can't report on anything bad we do, anything wrong we do. Because why would they approve? Why would this administration ever approve of a story that has them doing something wrong? They can't even admit when they're wrong. They can't even admit when they made a mistake. They're not going to. So they're trying to turn the news agencies that report inside the Pentagon into propaganda pieces. And of course, the only fucking news agent, even Fox News and Newsmax, told the Pentagon to get fucked. The only news agency that decided to sign this pledge was OAN. I think, let's see this. Can you imagine if you get your news from OAN? How fucking bad does this look? Oh, yeah, we'll do your propaganda. No problem.
So the United States has been providing intelligence to help So starting tomorrow, the only news outlet allowed inside of the Pentagon to cover the DoD is OAN, One American News, which is pretty right-leaning, to say the least. The DoD, or Secretary Hegseth, put out this new list of requirements for the press, and every organization said, dude, that's ridiculous.
Someone said OAN is right-leaning in the same way that a Category 5 hurricane is a little windy.
Max said, get out of here. We're not doing that.
Fox News and Newsmax are like, no. There is no way to ever hold you guys accountable, because if we come up with this, let's say we find a story where you're taking out fucking generals who don't pass PT tests and blowing their fucking brains out back and saying that they were killed in a mission overseas, right? An exaggerated example. We couldn't run that unless you tell us it's okay.
Post, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, Axios, Associated Press, everybody except OAN. Now, what these restrictions were, and the reason they're being pushed back on so strongly,
there are no journalists. Hegseth wants to make it sound like journalists get inside the Pentagon, and then they're like snooping through offices and digging through files of classified documents, and they're running. This has never happened. This would be a violation and get them banned and probably get their agency in trouble as well immediately. That's not the way the Pentagon works.
The DoD just kind of rattled off some stuff that doesn't exist.
And you can't say, so they wanted to say, oh, well, we'll still do official press conferences. Pete Hegseth hasn't done an official press conference in 4 months. The guy under him hasn't done one in 2 months. They're not going to do official. So the only news you're going to get about the DoD and the Pentagon is going to come from OAN, and it's been signed off on by the DoD and the Pentagon.
Most important being that they would view any non-authorized material that is reported on as a criminal act.
A criminal act. If we don't sign off on your story, it is criminal to report on it. Not classified, never been classified, it doesn't matter. We have to sign off on it.
Like, every single piece of information coming through DoD has to be classified or unclassified, doesn't matter.
How can MAGA hear this and not compare it to, like, fucking North Korea or some shit, right? Like, what other country has this?
Has to be cleared through the DoD press office before a reporter can even talk about it, which is, of course, not exactly how we do, the freedom of speech, freedom of press here in the United States. Now, in Secretary Hegseth's words, he put out a statement saying this is the new credentialing process for dummies. Press will no longer roam free. Press must wear visible badges and
I will tell you, I've been in the Pentagon. This doesn't happen. I've seen the press pool in the Pentagon. This doesn't happen. No one wanders around like fucking like opening files with a flashlight in their mouth and like digging through. Like, this doesn't happen. No longer will you be able to go wherever you want and dig through whatever files. It doesn't happen like that.
Credentialed press no longer are permitted to solicit criminal acts. Now, the Pentagon Press Association put out a statement in response to this, said, let's be clear about the facts. Pentagon reporters have always worn badges and continue to do so to this day. Pentagon reporters have always been restricted to unclassified spaces only. The idea that
unclassified spaces only, they can't just wander into a classified meeting or like fucking Dixie cup up to the wall listening through it. Like, that's not how it happens.
Reporters have been prowling in offices where they are not allowed is simply preposterous. They said every political administration, going back to the...
They know each other. They respect each other. There are guys there that I'm sure they know some things. They're like, we don't want the press to get this. The press gets it, and they're like, fuck. But it's a professional relationship, right?
1950s, including the first Trump administration, has allowed this same level of access. Now, in terms of what this means going forward, NPR put out a statement saying, quote, with no reporters able to ask questions, it seems the Pentagon leadership will continue to rely on slick social media posts, carefully orchestrated short videos, and interviews with partisan
and fucking AI
commentators and podcasters. Now, what's interesting here is you might say, well, they just can't be there, but clearly there's going to be opportunities to engage with the Pentagon and ask questions during these pressing times, right?
Hasn't been for months.
Wrong. They're not doing press conferences at all. Like, they're not making themselves available. The Military Reporters and Editors Association put out a statement saying, quote, Secretary Hegseth has not briefed Pentagon reporters in nearly 4 months, and Press Secretary Kingsley Wilson has not conducted a briefing in 2 months. The Defense Department has avoided questions from the press, all while U.S. troops are operating around the globe. The Pentagon has conducted legally questionable military strikes that have killed people in international waters, and the administration has deployed troops to American cities. The lack of access to this Pentagon is unprecedented. Like, we've seen nothing like this at all. And I want to be clear, this is not the case with other departments inside the United States right now. There is a ton of access inside of the White House, inside of the State Department, inside of DOJ. All of these others are doing the same. If
I don't believe that either. There's not a ton of access inside the DOJ. There's a ton of access around the White House because Trump always wants to be on camera. That's it.
Not more access to the press. DOD, it's on lockdown. And again, starting tomorrow, the only outlet you're going to hear from, OAN. So starting tomorrow, so Fox News just issued a statement to the Pentagon saying, we're not signing that ridiculous new pledge you're asking of reporters. And they join just about every media organization in the United States. I mean, Newsmax said this is ridiculous, guys. Wall Street Journal, Associated Press, Reuters, New York Times, you name it. Everyone except OAN, One American News, which is a pretty far-right leaning network. They're the only ones at this point, as of tomorrow, that will be allowed in the Pentagon to do any sort of reporting at all, which is an interesting place we find ourselves in, to say the least. Now, a statement issued just a couple minutes ago by Fox News. It was a joint statement issued by Fox, ABC News, CBS News, CNN, and NBC, where they said, quote, today we join virtually every other news organization in declining to agree to the Pentagon's new requirements, which would restrict journalists' ability to keep the nation and the world informed of important national security issues. The policy is without precedent and threatens core journalistic protections. We will continue to cover the U.S. military as each of our organizations has done for many decades, upholding the principles of a free and independent press. Now, we haven't heard much from DOD or DOW since all of these organizations have said, yeah, no, we're not doing that at all. The only response that I've seen so far is Secretary Hegseth posting a waving emoji every time one of these outlets says, this is not appropriate, this doesn't help anyone, this is kind of clamping down on free speech and hurts DOD. They get a wave emoji, but those are the only responses I've seen so far. So Fox News just issued a statement to the Pentagon saying, we're not signing that ridiculous new pledge you're asking of reporters. And they joined.
How fucking crazy. This is Preston Stewart. He does, we watch a lot of his stuff around the military, but especially his Russia-Ukraine stuff. He does a really good job. I have a feeling they're going to be on a lot of podcasts. And we're going to somehow be getting our information from goddamn fucking Stuart. What's the guy's name? Stuart Peters, the once rapper guy. People like that. Benny Johnson. You're right. That's fucking insane, right? He does a really good job. Let's see. I'm sure he's got some Ukraine stuff here recently.
So the United States has been providing intelligence to help Ukraine strike targets inside of Russia. Now, this is something
he kind of he's former military, and he combs a lot of the Telegram channels and tries to confirm stuff, and he does a really good job.
Been speculated for a long time without any verification. There was talk a couple weeks ago that the United States might start doing this more. It sounds like now it's been going on since at least this past summer, according to a new article in the Financial Times, where they say the United States has for months been helping Ukraine mount long-range strikes on Russian energy facilities in what officials say is a coordinated effort to weaken Putin's economy and force him to the negotiating table. American intelligence shared with Kyiv has enabled strikes on important Russian energy assets, including oil refineries, according to multiple Ukrainian and U.S. officials. They say the previously unreported support has intensified since midsummer and has been crucial in helping Ukraine carry out attacks that Joe Biden's White House discouraged. And that was a problem, and we talked about it then. The idea that we were going to give Ukraine these weapons, long-range munitions like the ATACMS and the Gimlers, both fired out of the HIMARS, and then tell Ukraine that they can't go after strategic or operationally important targets inside of Russian territory was a blunder from the beginning. It's been a problem Ukraine has been kind of fighting back from over the course of the last 2.5 years. Now, in terms of the details here, they say U.S. intelligence helps Kyiv shape route planning, altitude timing, and mission decisions, enabling Ukraine's long-range one-way attack drones to evade Russian air defenses. A U.S. official said Ukraine selected the targets for long-range strikes, and Washington then provided intel on the site's vulnerabilities. So a couple key aspects there. This is above and beyond just satellite imagery. Yes, the United States will have more real-time satellite imagery, but utilizing multiple means of intelligence, multiple sources of intelligence to provide real-time updates on where the routes. These drones don't fly in a straight line from A to B, right? They're trying to move through Russian territory without being detected so they can reach the target in one piece and effectively strike. So U.S. intel is helping them plan the most effective route to make it to the target, and then once on target, strike in the most damaging way possible, primarily here against Russian energy infrastructure. They do note a couple other things here that are really important. Ukraine is determining the targets. The United States is then assisting with intel. The United States is not saying, hey, Ukraine, go hit this, that, or the other thing. Also, according to this report, these strikes are being carried out by Ukrainian one-way long-range attack drones. According to everything that we've seen, that is true. I mean, the pieces picked up on the ground inside of Russia over and over and over again, the videos recording these things coming in are Ukrainian-made, designed, developed, and manufactured drones. But this, to my knowledge, is the first public reporting that the United States is assisting Ukraine with intelligence to carry out strikes inside of Russian territory. So the United States has been providing intelligence.
So he does a really good job. If you want to follow him, Preston Stew is his username, Preston Stewart. He's on YouTube, Shorts, and TikTok as well. I don't know what this is, but I want to check it out.
For a year to visit D.C. with our family. We can't wait to check out the monuments and museums.
I love knowing only the right kind of people are working our fields.
And that the government is making sure of it.
I'll defend the Second Amendment no matter what. It's what makes America the safest place in the world.
It's so important that every child learns the right beliefs. These Christian values will guide them for the rest of their lives.
I love how simple the news is now. With state-run TV and media, there is no more fake news.
I don't mind paying more for groceries. Things are going well, right? Besides, we're getting rich from tariff revenue.
The great thing about America is you can always trust our leaders.
Bags of money in the background.
Interests in mind.
I just love how peaceful our neighborhoods feel these days.
It's great. My kids don't have to read anything.
Book burning.
Commercial. My backpack isn't as heavy anymore.
As long as we obey, everything will be okay.
That's a pretty good video. Jennifer Winkler tagged me in that. That's a pretty good video. Israel kills 7 Palestinians in violation of the Gaza ceasefire. Attacks target civilians inspecting their damaged homes. Israel forces killed at least 7 Palestinians in the Gaza Strip on Tuesday in violation of the ceasefire agreement signed last week, according to local health officials. 6 people were killed in Gaza City and 1 in Khan Yunis, in Gaza City's eastern neighborhood. At least 5 people were killed in an aerial attack while inspecting their homes, according to the Palestinian Civil Defense. Separately, a drone strike east of Khan Yunis killed 1 person. These attacks constitute a breach of the ceasefire agreement that took effect on Friday, which explicitly stated that all military operations, including aerial and artillery bombardment and targeting operations, will be suspended. Israeli military confirmed carrying out the attacks, claiming it targeted individuals who had crossed an agreed-upon army deployment yellow line after issuing warning shots. It did not comment on the drone strike whatsoever. Hamas spokesperson Hazim Qassam condemned the attacks, calling them a violation of the ceasefire agreement. The Israeli army's killing of several Gaza residents this morning through shelling and gunfire is a clear breach of the ceasefire, he said in a statement. He called on international actors to hold Israel accountable and to ensure it adheres to its commitments made to mediators regarding the cessation of hostilities in the Gaza Strip. Israeli officials have expressed frustration over Hamas's handing over only 4 bodies of deceased captives in Gaza on Monday, calling it insufficient compared to what had been previously agreed. Defense Minister Israel Katz described the move as failure to meet commitments and warned that any delay would be considered a gross violation of the agreement and will be responded to accordingly. The return of the bodies is part of the broader agreement brokered in Egypt last week, which aims to end the war in Gaza, ease Israeli restrictions on humanitarian aid, and facilitate an Israeli withdrawal from urban areas in the Strip. So far, Hamas has returned 4 bodies while search operations continue to locate the remains of 24 other Israelis. All living captives have been released in exchange for nearly 2,000 Palestinian detainees. Under the terms of the truce, Hamas is required to release the remains of deceased hostages in its possession or in the possession of other Palestinian factions within 72 hours of the ceasefire taking effect, or as soon as it's able to locate them. As an international committee is currently assisting in efforts to locate and retrieve the remaining bodies, Israel, in turn, is expected to release the remains of dozens of deceased Palestinians. I heard they're already threatening to reduce the amount of aid. "45 minutes ago. Let's see. There might be an ad here. But
the bodies of 4 more hostages are now back on Israeli soil after Hamas handed them over to the Red Cross late Tuesday night. You can see in this video from inside of the Gaza Strip these Red Cross vehicles arriving at some kind of Hamas building where the
I don't know what you're talking about, but cool.
bodies were indeed handed over. This now makes 8 bodies total that Hamas has handed over to the Red Cross. From there, they were handed over to Israeli forces inside of the Gaza Strip and then made their way into Israel, where they will undergo forensic analysis at Israel's National Forensic Institute. The primary purpose of that, to confirm that the bodies are indeed those of the hostages that Hamas claims
I don't know who the fuck Derek is either.
Them to be. But despite the handover of these additional bodies, there are still 20 bodies being held by Hamas inside of Gaza. And that's why we've been seeing the families of some of these deceased hostages going public and making clear that the fight for the hostages is not over yet until all of those bodies are handed over, calling on the United States, calling on Israel to ensure that Hamas is held to its end of the bargain. And amid those calls, we've heard from President Trump directly in a Truth Social post saying that while a big burden has been lifted, the job is not done. He says the dead have not been returned as promised. Now, given the slow pace of Hamas handing over these bodies, the Israeli government seems
threatening to limit aid, food, water, medical supplies.
To be planning to take action now. Israeli authorities informing the United Nations that aid shipments into the Gaza Strip will be reduced or delayed as a result of not all of the bodies having been handed over yet. In addition to that, Israel's security establishment recommending that Israel...
Apparently, the guarantees are supposed to be around the other countries that signed on stepping in. That's what it's supposed to be.
Not open the Rafah crossing between Gaza and Egypt on Wednesday as previously scheduled, seemingly in retaliation for Hamas not returning more bodies of hostages. And all of this...
So they say they're trying to locate the rest of the bodies, which is completely in agreement. As soon as they locate the bodies, they have to turn them over, or within 4 days if they have them right now. And they're already closing entrances for aid trucks to come in, while they're literally starving to death in there.
Is a reminder of just how fragile this ceasefire agreement actually is. And that's before we even start talking about the next phases of this agreement, which we are told are currently being negotiated in Egypt as we speak. Those next parts of the agreement, of course, revolve around everything from Hamas disarming, Hamas handing over power in Gaza to a transitional authority, and of course, the Israeli military withdrawing from the rest of the Gaza Strip, ensuring that this end to the war in Gaza, as President Trump has said it is, actually sticks in the long term.
President Trump has talked, what needs to be
What is this?
in Gaza in
Major questions remain.
in terms of sort of finding the funding and money from that for leaders from the region. And he said some of those leaders have come forward and offered money. But the sort of hard and difficult issues that await Gaza are the international stabilization force. How many troops? We've heard 20,000 to 40,000, but who's going to provide them? What will their mandate be? Will they have a UN backing? What will their rules of engagement do? What happens if a gunman comes out on the street and points a weapon at them? Are they entitled to shoot first before they're shot at? Questions like that.
None of these questions have been answered. It's like a rough framework that needed, because I think because he wanted to rush it out. It doesn't seem like there's going to be this international force. We don't know what their role is or their role isn't, like he just said. We don't know what their rules of engagement are. Recent news reports from mid-October 2025 detail security guarantees for Gaza ceasefire negotiated by the United States under former President Donald Trump with mediation from Egypt, Qatar, and Turkey. Key guarantees include an international stabilization force, that's the ISF, a reformed Palestinian Authority to oversee Gaza, and the disarmament of Hamas, though many aspects remain unresolved. A temporary international stabilization force comprising of U.S., Arab, and other international partners would immediately deploy in Gaza. Analysts speculate that the force could include soldiers from Egypt, Jordan, Saudi Arabia, the United Arab Emirates, and Indonesia. But those people should already fucking be there. Like, we shouldn't have to have an analyst say, oh, we probably think that some of them will come from here. They should already be there. Day one. Mandate. The ISF's purpose is to provide security during the transition from war to peaceful governance. It is also tasked with training and supporting a new vetted Palestinian force, IDF withdrawal. Under the plan, the Israel Defense Forces, IDF, would progressively hand over territory in Gaza to the ISF as Israeli forces withdraw. Open questions. Many details regarding the ISF are still unclear, including its command structure, specific coordination with the IDF, and its precise mandate. No country has yet to even officially volunteer its soldiers for the mission. So it's tentatively there, and I guess people agree to it, but no one knows what it looks like.
Of detail from President Trump, and he was in that room with all those leaders, and really we understood they'd come in wanting to try to get momentum from phase 1 to phase 2, from the ceasefire, hostage release, prisoner release, to all those other remaining questions on President Trump's 20-point plan. And you can sort of look at the faces of the leaders that were lined up behind President Trump when he was speaking here in Sharm. You had Prime Minister of Greece, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, standing behind him, Giorgia Meloni, the Italian Prime Minister. Next to him, next to her, was the Pakistani Prime Minister, Shehbaz Sharif. He gave a very glowing speech of praise to President Trump, a speech, by the way, thanking the president for the peace that had brought between India and Pakistan, which that war had really escalated earlier on in the year. I was there. President Trump, the United States, was heavily involved in de-escalating there. But also, you have to remember the Pakistan Prime Minister looking for a better relationship with the U.S. President as well.
Yeah, I saw.
You had the British Prime Minister, Keir Starmer.
I saw 2 days ago. That would be the Gaza Humanitarian Foundation. I saw 2 or 3 days ago that their aid sites were being shut down, basically immediately as soon as the deal was struck. We're kind of in this weird period of time where no one knows who's in charge. There is no ISF. There is no oversight. There's nothing going on right now.
The Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney next to him, and the look on their faces sort of told you, like, where is the momentum? They weren't necessarily rolling their eyes, but they were standing behind the president giving a very long speech, and I think a lot of them had been hoping to get more or understand more or see more momentum, and that didn't connect. And another sense of that lack of momentum perhaps came from the fact that the Crown Prince of Saudi Arabia, perhaps the closest country to Egypt, to Sharm el-Sheikh, didn't come. He sent his very capable foreign minister, the leader of the UAE, United Arab Emirates. He didn't come. He sent a very capable vice president. But the symbolism and signaling that these very powerful and influential and rich leaders in the region, that they actually didn't come, really symbolizes perhaps the fact that there wasn't a lot of detail in the document. There really are a lot of dots left to be joined up. And of course, that is the worry now. If you don't have the detail down now, how do you keep the momentum? How do you get that stabilizing?
Trump, this is something Trump's really bad about. He loves the headlines and hates the minutia, right? He loves this headline of, I stopped this war, or I fixed the farmers, or I did this, but he hates the details. He gets the headline and moves the fuck on to another headline, and that's it.
Force in quickly. How do you prevent Hamas gaining ground, gaining strength again in Gaza? Israel is waiting for the international community to disarm Hamas. These are the sort of competing tensions, and I don't believe we got a sense of progress on that from what President Trump said.
I want to tell you that your son.
What is this? I don't know. hopefully it works out well. I'm not ragging on Trump just because I want him to. I hope everything's fixed, right? But it seems like they did complete and utter destruction to the entire country, and now they're like, okay, you can have your rubble back. Seems pretty bad. Oh, we saw this one already. This is a longer portion of it where they rammed her car. We watched this last night, didn't we?
Hey, weapon! That weapon! Yo, watch out! What's wrong with you?
They hit this car. They sideswipe it.
What's wrong? You hit her. You hit her. You guys hit her. You guys hit her. What's wrong with y'all?
That's okay. This leads into the where do we want to go for this? Let's go to YouTube. New reports coming out that ICE threatened to shoot ambulance drivers that were trying to take a protester for medical treatment. Their statements are pretty consistent. Two different ambulance drivers, statements matched up. One went to back to the company. The other one went to like their union or something.
And I want to first start with a real quick update about what's happening right now at the ICE facility in Portland. It looks like maybe a bit of a dance break for the zebra and the frog and some of the other protesters who are behind me. We've been here for a few hours now, and things have been very calm with just some protesters on the sidewalks, some music, and sharing their thoughts. Now, to what you mentioned there, public records and dispatch audio that we have reviewed have shown that about a week ago, federal agents stalled an AMR ambulance from leaving the ICE facility. Medics were inside the gate.
The driver claims that they wouldn't let them leave, even though they asked repeatedly to leave, and they wouldn't let them. And they had someone needing medical attention in the ambulance. And so when they wouldn't let them leave, he put it in park. And you know when you put your car in park, it has to, there's a thing called a pawl in there that catches the gears and like forces the transmission locked up. When you put your car in park and let your foot off the brake, it rolls like a minute amount. Okay, sometimes it's worse on like heavy duty vehicles, cabin chassis, like an ambulance would be, but still it rolls less than 2-3 inches, right? It rolls and locks into park. They considered that and accused the ambulance driver of trying to ram them with the ambulance, drew weapons on them, and threatened to shoot them.
Gates behind me, trying to drive out and transport an injured protester who had hurt his shoulder after agents allegedly tackled him to the ground while they detained him. On October 5th, a Sunday night, a federal police dispatcher called 911.
I'm calling requesting EMS to 4310 Southwest Macadam for one of the detained subjects.
About 10 minutes later, the ambulance arrived, driving into the ICE facility through open gates, past protesters on the sidewalk. An AMR medic would later tell the hospital about the patient's condition.
On board today, we have a 32-year-old male. Chief complaint today is going to be some left shoulder pain, as well as some right wrist and ankle pain, secondary to being tackled to the ground by some officers.
But when the AMR ambulance was ready to leave, a medic told 911.
The ambulance people should be out of the question. They shouldn't be there to support the protesters. They should be there to support us. They should be there to provide medical attention and transport.
Dispatchers, federal agents, wouldn't let them out.
1343, copy. You're attempting to transport code 1 to manual impeded by protesters?
No, not protesters, just the ICE officers.
Public records from Portland's Bureau of Emergency Communications note 50 to 60 federal agents completely blocking the road. AMR still not driving out yet.
50 to 60 agents blocking the road and refusing to let them leave.
Protesters noticed what was happening. They started chanting. Minutes later, the gates opened and dozens of agents walked out to the road, but the ambulance still didn't leave. According to the Willamette Week, citing confidential reports filed by AMR medics, federal agents were threatening to shoot and arrest the medic driving the ambulance.
Why? Both reports say that federal agents, in an effort to block the ambulance's departure, stood directly in front of the vehicle. As the delay dragged on, according to reports, the ambulance operator put the vehicle into park, causing it to lurch forward slightly. The reports indicate that federal agents did not like this, so much so that an agent threatened to shoot and arrest the driver. The driver, frightened, asked why. An agent, according to reports, responded that the driver had attempted to hit him with the ambulance,
claiming they had tried to drive forward and hit federal agents when they put the vehicle in park.
Just an update, we are still not being allowed to leave by the ICE officers.
In total, it took roughly 10 minutes for federal officers to let the ambulance crew leave the ICE facility.
We also have agents following us as well.
AMR says it's reviewing the situation. A union rep for the medics says the union is working with AMR and management to prevent any future incidents.
I can already see fucking, what's her name, the press secretary saying, are you talking about the crazy radical leftist ambulance drivers who tried to run down our brave men in uniform that are working to free this country of the illegal aliens that are bringing in drugs and rapers.
Incidents between members and ICE agents. We reached out to the Department of Homeland Security as well, asking them for a comment or any information on this interaction between federal agents and AMR medics. We have not heard anything from DHS, ICE, or any other federal offices. Here at the ICE building tonight, we continue to see people in inflatable costumes.
Oh shit! Did you guys celebrate Charlie Kirk Day? I forgot to ask.
Trying to use humor to show that they are nonviolent protesters and saying that they are using dancing and other actions like that to show the absurdity of what they believe is the federal immigration enforcement activities at this time. Back to you.
Yeah, quite the colorful crowd behind you. Evan, appreciate your reporting there.
It's an insurrection, rebellion.
You won't. I saw 2 teachers' aides. I believe they're both aides. When I went to pick up Ollie, both of them had red shirts, and on the front of it, it said freedom, and on the back of it, it said Charlie Kirk and had the dates. I asked my son, I said, has anybody talked to you about a guy named Charlie Kirk? And he's like, no. And I was like, no one mentioned it. No one said anything. No one told you that it's about the day or anything. No. I was about to lose my shit, dude.
Anarchy in the streets. Oh, did you miss it? Were you at Pilates when the country descended into lawlessness? Were you scrolling on your phone when it all went down? Hate it when that happens. Or doesn't happen because a lot of the things the president says are not real.
Portland is burning to the ground. It's insurrectionists all over the place.
Like that. That never happened. But the Trump administration says the president has the absolute right to declare an emergency based on stuff he just made up, and no court can stop him. And he's reportedly considering invoking the Insurrection Act to allow him to put soldiers on American streets to act as police.
What do you think the chances are he's waiting for No Kings, which is probably going to be the largest protest in history again, to do the Insurrection Acts, to invoke it?
Well, I do it if it was necessary. So far, it hasn't been necessary, but we have an Insurrection Act for a reason. If I had to enact it, I'd do that. If people were being killed and courts were holding us up, or governors or mayors were holding us up, sure, I'd do that. I mean, I want to make sure that people aren't killed.
Yeah, we do have an Insurrection Act for a reason, and that reason is not because the president makes up stories about roving bands of black-clad Antifa members burning down cities. But you can't talk about the Insurrection Act without first talking about the Posse Comitatus Act. In the United States, the military does not engage in civilian law enforcement. Back in ye olde England, the local lawman would call up a crew of able-bodied men to enforce the law and hunt down criminals. On this side of the Atlantic, the sheriff's posse was a regular fixture of the American West. But after the Civil War, southern states didn't want the federal government using the military to enforce desegregation. And so Congress passed the Posse Comitatus Act in 1878 to make sure that the former Confederacy could implement Jim Crow laws, ensuring that formerly enslaved black Americans could never vote or exercise political power. The act is just one sentence. It says, whoever, except in cases and under circumstances expressly authorized by the Constitution or Act of Congress, willfully uses any part of the Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, the Air Force, or the Space Force as a posse comitatus, or otherwise to execute the laws, shall be fined under this title or imprisoned not more than 2 years or both. And despite its sordid origins, the Posse Comitatus Act has become a pillar of American civil-military relations. In this country, the military does not enforce the law. We do not have soldiers in the street. We have civilian law enforcement, both federal and state, and the military has its own justice system, separate and distinct from civil courts. But Donald Trump has never understood this. Way back in 2013, he tweeted, "We need our troops on the streets of Chicago, not in Syria." That would have been entirely illegal, but in 2013, Trump was just a civilian, so it didn't matter if the star of The Apprentice didn't understand the Posse Comitatus Act. Today, it matters. But Trump's understanding of civil-military relations has not evolved.
And I told Pete, we should use some of these dangerous cities as training grounds for our military, National Guard, but military. As president, I will never hesitate to defend our people from threats of violence, from the horrible plague that's taking place from within.
No, we cannot use American cities as training grounds for our military. Are you crazy? This isn't the Hunger Games. We have millions of civilian law enforcement officers whose actual job is to wield the police power to ensure that people follow the law. And if you think that crime rates are a good metric for how good a job cops are doing, well, crime rates are down everywhere, particularly in cities. But that's just in the real world over at the White House.
I'm announcing a historic action to rescue our nation's capital from crime, bloodshed, bedlam, and squalor, and worse.
Because of D.C.'s unique status as a federally controlled city that is part of no state, the president was able to call up the D.C. National Guard and even send in guard troops from other states. There wasn't a tremendous amount for them to do in a city of just 700,000 people, though, but that didn't stop Trump from taking
sweeping, raking, shoveling,
for ending crime in the nation's capital.
The capital of America.
They didn't do anything with crime.
Was a bloodthirsty, horrible, dangerous place, one of the worst. And now it's a crime-free city, and we're going to keep it that way.
Again, he did not end crime in D.C., but that did not stop him from threatening to deploy the military in other democratic states and cities. It is getting crazy out there, and so now is probably a good time to wipe all your personal and private information off the internet.
That's right.
Your cell phone number,
get a hold of his buddy,
private social media accounts, and tons of sensitive data are shockingly easy to purchase by anybody online. But you can fight back and take control of your private information by signing up for today's sponsor, Incogni. Incogni wipes your personal personal data from the internet by searching the internet, reaching out to data brokers and websites directly on your behalf, and forcing them to remove your private information. If they resist, Incogni will take care of that too, because Incogni fights back. But what makes Incogni truly powerful in taking back control of your privacy is the custom removals feature. It allows you to flag an unlimited number of sites where your data is exposed, and you can even have Incogni's privacy experts review and tackle the most uncooperative data brokers and people search sites. I've been using Incogni for a while now. In that time, you can see I've been on hundreds of lists, some of which had a high sensitivity score, meaning the broker had tons of data on me. Luckily, Incogni has completed hundreds of takedowns for me. I could never do this myself, so thank you to Incogni for weeks.
There you go. Support the show at buymeacopy.com/coldbeer.
Work and adding me to over 40 suppression lists. And Incogni will continue.
Fuck, dude. I got speaking of supporting the show, I got to buy some spring hangers for the Ranger I've been working on over at TikTok. The fucking leaf springs are about to fall off that bitch.
To conduct ongoing removals, because even if the broker removes your data once, they can collect it and publish it again. So if online privacy is important to you, give Incogni a try. If you scan the code on screen or click on the link in the description, you'll get 60% off their annual unlimited plan. Or try Incogni risk-free for 30 days. If you decide you want to keep it, you'll still get a 60% discount, so long as you use our code LEGALEAGLE, one word. So sign up for Incogni or we will see you in court. So much of what Trump has done in the past 9 months has rested on emergency powers delegated by Congress. We got constantly shifting tariffs because of the emergency trade deficit. We shipped a bunch of Venezuelan men, most of whom had never been arrested, to seek out prison in El Salvador because Trump said we were being invaded by the Venezuelan government and invoked the Alien Enemies Act. Trump declares an energy emergency to override all environmental regulations. It's clear that Congress believed two things when it drafted those emergency power statutes. First, legislators assumed that the president would act in good faith and not just pull the alarm bell and shout emergency every time he wanted to do stuff that would otherwise be illegal. Second, they took as a given that future Congresses would jealously guard their own power and revoke that emergency authority if the president misused it. Obviously, they bet wrong there too. And maybe those legislators believed a third thing, which is that courts would put a stop to any blatant abuse of emergency authority. Sadly, none of that turned out to be true. Instead, the president is treating endemic issues like acute ones, and he says that his own subjective or even blatantly false characterization of an emergency is the final word and cannot be reviewed by any court. So if he says Portland's on fire and needs the military to keep order, then it's on fire and no court can say, what? No, it's not, and block him from sending in troops. One of these emergency delegations of authority by Congress is 10 U.S.C. Section 12406, which empowers the president to take control of state militias in case of invasion, rebellion, or when he is unable with regular forces to execute the laws of the United States. That was the authority Trump relied on to federalize California's National Guard. DHS surged ICE agents into the greater LA area, and they encountered random pockets of sporadic violence, which were immediately quelled by the LAPD and the LA Sheriff's Department. Trump seized on that moment of violence as justification to send in the National Guard and Marines.
This one. Trump tells wealthy people at the golf club their taxes are going down while Americans can't afford groceries.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Your taxes are coming down. See, everyone's happy, honey.
That's awesome.
You've done a good job. We'll run through the 9 holes.
Why does she look so uncomfortable?
Awesome.
You've done a good job. We'll run through the 9 holes.
Your taxes are going down.
Justice Department argued that the president's declaration that he's unable to execute the laws is unreviewable by any court. Here, have a video. Have two. The Ninth Circuit said that courts do have the right to review the president's determination under 12406, but that it wasn't totally crazy to say that the rioting in LA hindered the president's ability to execute the laws, and so the deployment of the National Guard was legal. Notably, even guardsmen legally deployed under Section 12406 are subject to the Posse Comitatus Act. The state of California sued, alleging that virtually everything the Guard was doing on the ground in Los Angeles violated that law, and Judge Charles Breyer agreed. He said,
because they were acting as law enforcement. He can deploy them to go fucking sweep and all kinds of shit. They can't act as law enforcement.
Defendants systematically used armed soldiers whose identity was often obscured by protective armor and military vehicles to set up protective perimeters and traffic blockades, engage in crowd control, and otherwise demonstrate a military presence in and around Los Angeles. In short, defendants violated the Posse Comitatus Act. He based that in part on this training slide. See how it's got a list of prohibited law enforcement activities, but 4 of them are highlighted in red? The judge found that the troops were orally instructed that the 4 functions listed in red, security patrols, traffic control, crowd control, and riot control, were subject to a so-called constitutional exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. Essentially, the Defense Department took the position that when federal agents or facilities were under attack, troops are allowed to engage in these law enforcement functions, which may make sense, except that the government took the position that wherever federal personnel go, National Guard troops can accompany them and establish perimeter control, engage in crowd control, and otherwise perform any functions necessary to ensure the execution of federal functions and the safety of federal personnel. And in fact, they argue that even when there is no threat to the safety or security of federal personnel or property,
even when there's no threats,
mere possibility that federal law enforcement agents might not be able to do their job.
There's a possibility that, you know, a fucking armed assassin pops out of a hot air balloon.
Could justify deployment of National Guard troops as a preventative measure, which means that the exception functionally swallows the rule, and they can violate the Posse Comitatus Act at will. The Ninth Circuit stayed that ruling by Judge Breyer and has not yet addressed it as of this recording, so as of today, Guard troops can and are doing things which a court has found violate the Posse Comitatus Act. But remember up top when Trump said he might invoke the Insurrection Act if courts didn't let him do what he wants? That is what he means. Okay, but let's come back to that in a sec, because first we need to talk about Portland and Chicago, the next two cities where Trump wants to send in troops. On the campaign trail, Trump promised to solve crime in a matter of weeks through the judicious application of police brutality.
You know, if you had one day, like one real rough, nasty day, now if you had one really violent day, one rough hour, and I mean real rough, the word will get out and it will end immediately.
But
he's not talking about criminals. He's talking about like, hey, if we go into the troops and just start fucking laying people the fuck out, then no one else will do it again.
In the White House for 9 months, and he's still banging that drum.
We've been living through a horrific cycle of political violence in this country. Night after night, Antifa wreaks havoc on our streets of our cities.
Again, there is no Antifa crime wave. That is totally made up. There is absolutely no evidence that the man who killed Democratic lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband Mark was affiliated with anti-fascist movements. And there's no evidence that Portland, Oregon is under siege by Antifa. It looks like what happened is that Fox News aired this video on the evening of September 4th.
I watched today. I didn't know that was continuing to go on, but Portland is unbelievable what's going on in destruction of the city. You know, that was not on my list, Portland, but when I watched television last night, what they've done to that place is just, it's like living in hell.
That footage is from protests outside the local ICE detention center in 2020. Nothing like that has taken place in years, but President Couch Potato saw it and decided that the city was on fire now. On September 27th, Trump ordered Secretary of Defense Pete Hegseth to flood Portland with troops, and the next day, Hegseth issued a memo to Oregon's Governor Tina Kotek purporting to federalize 200 troops pursuant to Section 12406. The state filed suit to block the president seizing control of its militia, noting that the Portland police had consistently made themselves available to the federal agents stationed at the ICE facility in their town, and they'd received zero requests for assistance since June when there were a few minor acts of vandalism by protesters. The lawless mayhem and attacks on ICE agents Trump talks about never happened. Although Kristi Noem has been creating content with conservative podcaster Benny Johnson, trying to whip up terror about guys in inflatable frog and chicken costumes.
Man in the chicken outfit, I just see him now. Goodness sakes. He could do better. It's too bad they're uneducated and uninformed.
Judge Karen Immerga, a Trump appointee to the federal court in Oregon, held a hearing and issued a temporary restraining order barring the federalization of the state's guard. As she pointed out, Section 12406 requires a presidential determination that there's rebellion or at a minimum that he can't carry out the laws. And that's just not the reality on the ground, where the protests in Portland have generally involved fewer than 50 people and have been wholly peaceful. In the entire month before Trump called off the guard, there were 4 incidents of protesters clashing with federal agents. The first involved protesters setting up a makeshift guillotine to intimidate federal officials. The second involved 4 people shining overpowered flashlights in the eyes of drivers. The third involved someone posting a photograph of an unmarked ICE vehicle online. And the last involved additional drivers having flashlights shown in their eyes. And then, when the Trump administration tried to get around that order by deploying National Guard troops from other states like Texas, Judge Immerga held an emergency hearing on Sunday night and issued a second TRO to block the deployment of any state's militia inside Oregon. The judge was big mad, and when a judge reminds you that you are an officer of the court repeatedly, well, she's not asking because she thinks your arguments are consistent with the ethical practice of law. But the Ninth Circuit was apparently not convinced. The appeals court has not issued a ruling as of this recording, but we did watch the oral argument on October 9, and it seemed like the panel was leaning pretty heavily in favor of letting the president deploy the guard.
That's a little bit of the irony here is that because the president acted in June in LA, I mean, I don't know that we have I don't know, but it seems like we don't have the same level of violence going on in LA right now. But the president acted when there was violence, and you're saying, well, if you don't hit it within a narrow window, you lose your right. That just seems unnaturally constrained.
Well, what we have is a finding from the district court that the federal law enforcement officers, unaided by military forces, were capable of not only quelling the violence in June, but also preventing it through September.
I'd like to ask you about some specific facts that I don't think are disputed. So the facility was forced to close. It was inoperable for almost a month, from June 13th to July 7th. And the declarations from the director of the Federal Protective Services and the field operations director from DHS state that the facility only reopened because of a surge of 115 Federal Protective Services officers to Portland, right? So those are facts that occurred, but that the district judge didn't consider because she apparently viewed them as out of time, that this had occurred. Are those not facts that are relevant to for the president to determine the threat?
If we said forces are allowed, and then we come back the next day and say, oh, well, you got it under control. Now they're not allowed. Then it goes back up. Oh, they're allowed. I mean, it just seems like such a tortured reading of the statute. I mean, I'm not even sure President Lincoln would have been able to bring in forces when he did, because he'd have to wait. You know, if he didn't do it immediately after Fort Sumter, your argument would be, oh, things are okay right now.
So it seems pretty likely that soldiers will soon be patrolling the streets of Portland, keeping America safe from the dangerous scourge of people dressed as unicorns and dinosaurs. Meanwhile, the president has set his sights on Chicago as the next city to get troops in the streets. Trump has long fantasized about militarizing law enforcement in the Windy City. In 2022, he said that the president would have no choice but to send the National Guard to Chicago to fight crime. Now, granted, crime is down in Chicago by a lot, and even if it weren't, it would still violate the Posse Comitatus Act to send in the National Guard to stop it.
And this cannot go on anymore. Every other approach has been considered and tried, and they've tried the weak approach. They've been trying it for years, and really trying it over the last couple of years, and it's not working. It's time to go a different direction, and only one option remains. The next president needs to send the National Guard to the most dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago until safety can be successfully restored, which can happen very, very quickly.
And remember, soldiers are not policemen. They're not trained to enforce the law or even to obey it. Civilian law enforcement officers are supposed to understand what constitutes grounds for a search, rules of engagement with the public, like when you can engage in a high-speed chase of a suspect. That's not what the National Guard does, and it's frankly not what ICE does either.
Yeah! Oh, what? Crazy shit. Y'all some crazy. Y'all got no heart, for real. No heart. No heart.
to note that the rhetoric coming out of the Trump administration about Chicago doesn't really have anything to do with immigration enforcement. Remember, the reason they gave for deploying troops to LA was that ICE agents weren't able to conduct raids fast enough because of the protesters, and the reason they needed to go into Portland because of the non-existent attacks on the ICE facility. What's the emergency here in Chicago? Why is Customs and Border Patrol riding around on the Chicago River loaded for bear? Here, the pretext involves protests outside an ICE facility in Broadview, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. Those protests have been minor, but that hasn't stopped federal officials from unleashing indiscriminate volleys of pepper balls, rubber bullets, and tear gas. Here they are shooting a priest in the head with a pepper ball as he prays in front of the facility. On October 4th, Hegseth sent a memo to Illinois demanding to federalize 300 of the state's National Guard. 2 days later, the state sued, seeking a temporary restraining order to block deployment of soldiers in the state, alleging that it would violate the terms of Section 12406, the 10th Amendment, and the Posse Comitatus Act. President Trump claims that Governor Pritzker and Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson have refused to protect ICE agents in Illinois from Antifa mobs. He even demanded that they be arrested. In reality, local and state police have actively worked to interpose themselves between protesters and federal agents, and claims that the federal government is unable to execute the laws are pretty substantially undercut by DHS's constant press releases bragging about the wild success of its Chicagoland operation, which they've dubbed Midway Blitz, and saying stuff like, Antifa and their friends haven't stopped us. They're not even slowing us down. ICE certainly doesn't seem to be intimidated. On September 29th, DHS used Black Hawk helicopters to raid an entire apartment building. As the state notes, while it is not clear whether any part of that conduct was within any lawful federal authority, defendants were not impeded in executing this large-scale planned operation. Illinois argues that the Trump administration can't claim it needs to call up troops to execute the laws while simultaneously patting itself on the back for what a good job it's doing executing those laws. On October 10th, Judge April Perry issued a temporary restraining order barring the federalization of Illinois' National Guard. She said that the government had failed to demonstrate that it was unable to execute the laws as required under Section 12406. Here, defense have made no attempt to rely on the regular forces before resorting to the federalization of the National Guard.
Yeah, you can't go straight to the military, I would assume.
Nor do defendants argue, nor is there any evidence to suggest that the president is incapable with the regular forces of executing the laws. Therefore, the statutory predicate contained within Section 124063 has not been met on that basis alone. That order was partially stayed by the Seventh Circuit, which allowed the Guard troops to be federalized but not deployed and sent out into the streets. We will see what happens there. I think Spencer's got a video on the hopper on that one. But what if courts tell Trump no? What if this move to use the military to enforce immigration laws by protecting ICE agents does get blocked by the judges? Well, then we're going to be in uncharted territory. The most important thing to know about the Insurrection Act is that it is an exception to the Posse Comitatus Act. If the president invokes the Insurrection Act, he can send troops into the cities to enforce the law. So you could potentially have the military conducting immigration raids in major U.S. cities. Lots of media commentators refer to that as a major escalation, but I do not get paid to spout euphemisms, so I'm going to tell it to you straight. That would be a f***ing nightmare, and it's one that may be coming sooner than we think. Recently, Trump posted an attorney general's opinion from 1965 advising President Johnson on the legality of invoking the Insurrection Act to protect civil rights protesters on their march from Selma to Montgomery, Alabama, which is kind of amazing from a guy who wanted to invoke the Insurrection Act to disperse the mostly peaceful protests in 2020 after George Floyd was murdered by police in Minneapolis. But let's go back to the beginning. After the Revolutionary War, the brand new American government needed cash to pay its war debt, and so it imposed an excise tax on domestically produced distilled spirits, aka whiskey. Farmers in western Pennsylvania decided they just weren't going to pay it, and sometimes they attacked the tax collector to get their point across. After 3 years of increasing violence, President George Washington raised a militia to go put down this whiskey rebellion. Those troops were convened pursuant to the Militia Act of 1792, which required a Supreme Court justice to concur that there was rebellion in the land, and Justice James Wilson did just that in 1794. That law was the predecessor to the Insurrection Act of 1807, which allows the president to call up the military in cases of insurrection, rebellion against the government, or inability to execute the law. Note that this version of the statute does not require buy-in from the Supreme Court. Multiple presidents have invoked the Insurrection Act when faced with local refusal to enforce the law. In the modern era, Presidents Eisenhower, Kennedy, and Johnson relied on the Insurrection Act when they summoned a militia to enforce court orders mandating desegregation in the southern states. But remember, in those cases, federal troops were sent in because local governments refused to enforce federal law.
And I say segregation now, segregation tomorrow, and segregation forever.
That was Governor George Wallace, who stood in the door of the University of Alabama and blocked black students from entering. Arkansas Governor Orville Faubus used his state's National Guard to block the desegregation of Little Rock High School. That was actual refusal to comply with a federal law and a direct order of the Supreme Court. President George H.W. Bush invoked the Insurrection Act to quell riots in Los Angeles after white police officers were acquitted of the brutal beating of Rodney King. But that was a breakdown of law and order entirely unlike what we're seeing anywhere in America today. Trump is defining insurrection down to people shining flashlights in ICE agents' faces and blocking the driveway to a detention center in an act of civil disobedience. And let's be clear, Trump has been talking about the Insurrection Act since the very first day he was sworn in, long before any of these protests took place. On January 20th, he signed a declaration of a national emergency at the southern border and instructed the Secretaries of Defense and Homeland Security to submit a joint report regarding additional actions that may be necessary to obtain complete operational control of the southern border, including whether to invoke the Insurrection Act of 1807. Of course, Illinois is nowhere near the southern border, but it's not a lawless hellhole either. So the question here is essentially, what will courts do if Trump invokes the...
Thank you.
Resubscribed for
the
27 months.
Clayton.
Just subscribe to the best channel. Absolutely incredible content. People are saying it's unbelievable. Nobody streams like this, believe me. Total winner. Many have tried, all have failed. Tremendous stuff.
That's funny. Thank you very much for your Trump-esque compliment. I appreciate it.
the Insurrection Act and claims authority to use troops to enforce laws in crowded urban areas. Will they accept absolutely any law breaking as sufficient predicate for the president to claim he can't execute the law and has to bring in the military? What if the president really believes that Antifa or gang members or little green men from Mars are burning down a city? Is that good enough? Can the president's alternative facts satisfy a court? The signs here are not good.
Portland's not burning. Holy fuck.
Multiple panels on the Ninth Circuit have now said that the president can call up troops on the flimsiest of pretexts. More or less any impediment to executing the law is good enough to satisfy the preconditions of Section 12406. Trial judges have pointed out the problem with this argument. In California, the government argued that it could have deported more people faster if not for the protest. Judge Breyer noted that even assuming that defendants are correct, the statute, that is 12406, does not allow for the federalizing of the National Guard when the president faces obstacles that cause him to underperform in executing the laws. Nor does the statute allow for the federalizing of the National Guard when the president faces some risk in executing the laws, though of course federal employees should never have to fear danger when performing their jobs. The statute requires that the president be unable to execute the laws of the United States. That did not happen here. But the appeals court disagreed and allowed the president to federalize California's National Guard. In Illinois, Judge April Perry pointed out that the logical end of the government's argument is that any violation of federal law is sufficient justification for militarization, right? I mean, by that logic, Trump is allowed to call up the National Guard every time someone doesn't show up for jury duty. Meanwhile, the administration keeps pointing generally to crime and saying that it would justify sending soldiers into the streets.
Crime has gotten out of control in our cities because our ICE agents, the people who are enforcing our immigration laws, have faced a 1,000% increase in violent attacks against them. We have people right now who are going out there, who are doing the job the president asked them to do, who are enforcing our immigration laws. They're being assaulted, they're being beaten, they're being shot at. The problem here is not the Insurrection Act or whether we actually invoke it or not. The problem is the fact that the entire media in this country, some cheered on by a few far-left lunatics, have made it okay to tee off on American law enforcement. We cannot accept that in the United States of America.
Yeah, we can't just let that stuff go unrebutted here.
Well, you just heard a tidal wave of lies from the Vice President of the United States. It's a bit shocking, and you heard over and over again him just making things up on national television with you. You know, there's a reason why the judge here in federal court said that the administration lacks credibility, and why even the Nobel Prize Committee chair said that the administration lacks integrity.
And so we wind up back at the Supreme Court again with the same question. Does the president get to define reality by executive fiat, and can courts evaluate the so-called emergency declaration? The vibes are not good.
Now, all this highlights why it's so important to get a great lawyer when you're dealing.
It's bad. It's bad and probably getting worse. I want to read you a post, and we're going to pretend like I posted it. I didn't, but we're going to pretend like it. And you tell me what my punishment should be, okay? Neanderthals can't have their cake and eat it. This weekend, they went openly anti-black racist, and now they're hurt that the racist rally ended in attempted martyrdom. Charlie Kirk won't be remembered as a hero. He was used to astroturf a movement of white nationalist trailer trash. End post. That's it. So the worst things we have is Neanderthals can't have their cake and eat it. The rally around Charlie Kirk was anti-black and racist. A racist rally. Charlie Kirk won't be remembered as a hero. He astroturfed a movement of white nationalist trailer trash. What do you think the punishment for that should be? If someone posts that, if anyone posts that, if I post it, anybody else posts it. What if the punishment was kicked out of the fucking country? The State Department kicked out 6 visa holders for posts about Charlie Kirk. That was one of the posts I just read. Then, in response to this news breaking, the State Department says, United States has no obligation to host foreigners who wish death on Americans. The State Department continues to identify visa holders who celebrated the heinous assassination of Charlie Kirk. Here are just a few examples of aliens who are no longer welcome in the United States. Here's another post. This one's worse, but still kicked out of the fucking... I thought we were the place of the free speech. Just came here to say Charlie Kirk can rest in piss. And fucking piss, I'm sorry. And yet again, if you have any empathy at all for people like this, you can go ahead and remove yourself as my friend. I do not give a fuck about the death of a person who devoted his entire life spreading racist, xenophobic, misogynistic rhetoric. It's hot as fuck where this man currently is, and it is deserved. Is that celebrating the assassination? They're literally saying, like, I don't have any empathy for him. He's not going to heaven, he's going to hell. That was somebody from Argentina. The one I just read was somebody from South Africa. These don't even have screenshots, these next two. It says a Mexican national said that Kirk died being a racist. He died being a misogynist, and stated that there are people who deserve to die. There are people who would make the world better off dead. No screenshot. This one may just be fucking made up. Who knows? Here's another one with no screenshot. A Brazilian national charged that Charlie Kirk was the reason for a Nazi rally where they marched in homage to him, and that Kirk died too late. This one does have a screenshot. It says, this was it. It doesn't even mention Charlie Kirk. It is in German. Translated from German, though, it says, when fascists die, Democrats don't complain. Visa revoked. Every one of these say visa revoked, visa revoked, visa revoked, like they're being edgy. No screenshot here. It says a man from Paraguay charged that Charlie Kirk was a son of a bitch and died by his own rules. Which, again, we've all seen the video where Charlie Kirk says, deaths, they're worth, we're going to have some deaths, but it's worth it to keep the right to defend yourself against a tyrannical government. So Charlie Kirk did die by his own rules. When he was asked directly, how do we respond to people that say, oh, another school shooting, we shouldn't have these guns? He said, I think that gun deaths are acceptable. Visa revoked. Charlie Kirk, a man so beloved, they had to make mourning him mandatory. Like you literally can't make up these headlines. It's from January 12th, 2012. North Korea reportedly punishing insincere mourners. Are punishing mourners who failed to exhibit sincere sadness and despair after the death of Kim Jong II. You remember when the right would just say whatever the fuck they wanted, and then if you're like, that's racist or that's fucked up or you shouldn't say that, they would scream freedom of speech and then call us snowflakes? Now, if you say, when fascists die, Democrats don't care, you're not allowed in our fucking country. They are pulling the visas of people for social media. I told you this was coming, right? They're monitoring social media, especially if you have a visa. But when they run out of visa holders, who do you think they're looking for then? Didn't they just have this big bullshit rigmarole over Europe or England going after people for social media posts and how that's not allowed and that's crazy, and we're going to take action to make sure you're safe on social media, on Twitter, when you're posting about, Muslims and this, that, but not Charlie Kirk. Not Charlie Kirk. Hell no. Off limits. Fuck Charlie Kirk, dude. Oh, thank you very much, Q Idiot. Q Idiot made a large donation. Thank you. I just saw it. Sorry. This is what, so there was a chat that leaked today, and it's really, really fucking bad. And it was this young, Republican group. It's fucking horrible. We're going to watch a video on it in just a second. Okay. You guys know Destiny and how his latest stance has been, I'm not disavowing anything. I'm not disavowing anything until the right can disavow some shit. Right? Because we've done disavow. And then the right says, oh, that wasn't us. That was Antifa. We don't do that. You're taking it out of context. This didn't happen. That didn't happen. No, we don't care. Oh, haha. Nancy Pelosi's husband got attacked by a guy with a hammer. They were probably going to have gay butt sex or whatever. Right? So Destiny says, liberals get mad at me because conservatives claim my strategy of disavow before they do is stooping to their level. Meanwhile, conservatives understand exactly the game being played. And he posts this post. And it is J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance was asked about these leaked messages from this group, which they're really bad, okay? We're gonna watch in a second. He was asked about it. J.D. Vance, the Vice President of the United States, and he said, instead of discussing it and saying, yeah, that's bad, we shouldn't say that, that's horrible, he says, oh, look at this message that I've got. This is far worse than anything said in a college group chat, and the guy who said it could become the AG of Virginia. I refuse to join the pearl clutching when powerful people call for violence. By the way, this isn't just a college chat. It's run by like a fucking 50-year-old lawyer. Like what the fuck are we talking about? And he shares a screenshot that says JJ, and it says, you weren't simply asking questions and you know it. The other guy says, I genuinely was. I wasn't attacking you. I was trying to understand your logic. First guy says, you weren't trying to understand. You were talking about hoping Jennifer Gilbert's children would die. The second guy says, yes, I've told you this before. Only when people feel pain personally do they move on policy. And we've seen that time and time and time and time and time again. So let's check out the comments, the messages that J.D. Vance wouldn't disavow.
A Young Republicans group text was leaked, and it featured some pretty damning stuff. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I'm just going to kind of read you an article here because while I like the news commentary where you're not just regurgitating other people's work, I want to tell you exactly what this piece said, and then we'll break it down a little bit. This is by Jason Beaverman and Emily Nyo. I encourage all of you, when looking at your political commentary, to look for which commentators are actually citing.
Now, remember, the vice president, we keep disavowing. Disavow. The people on the right pretend it didn't happen. Antifa did it. Oh, even if it did happen, Hillary did it and it was worse. He didn't mean that. He was joking. Everything's a joke. Nothing's real. When he says, I hate my political enemies, I would never forgive them, I'm going after them, that's all a joke. None of that's real. J.D. Vance wouldn't even disavow these messages. I'm done disavowing anything.
The work that they're talking about. There's a lot of people in the political commentary space who just kind of steal other people's work without giving them any credit. I don't like to be one of those vultures. I think that it's pretty reprehensible. This is Jason Beaverman and Emily Nyo, and this is their work that I'm sharing with you. To quote a couple of the texts from this Republican group chat that got leaked, everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. Also, we are officially under consideration for a Trump endorsement. I'm ready to watch people burn now. Great, I love Hitler. I really hope people don't clip this and take it out of context. I'm quoting people that are not me. That's very important. Stay in the closet, F word. This girl is fully R word. They call black people watermelon people. It's really bad. And listen, folks, I've said some shit in some group chats. I feel like a lot of people have said some shit in some group chats with their friends. It's a human thing to do, but two things. Number one, not stuff like this. Okay? We all can get inappropriate in our group chats. That's
Everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber. When do we bring that side out? You're giving nationalists too much credit and expecting the Jew to be honest. Are you going to do whatever it takes? Great, I love Hitler. If we ever had a leak of this chat, we would be cooked for real, for real. When do we start bullying dudes? It was rape. He also hates the Jew. Boom, they're dead. They love the watermelon people, which talking about black people. This girl was fully raped. Stay in the closet, you F slur. Yo, everyone that endorsed but then votes for us is going to the gas chamber. I'd go to the zoo if I wanted to watch a monkey play ball in response to watching an NBA game. I'm ready to watch people burn now. Also, we're officially under consideration for a Trump endorsement.
That's normal. I encourage you to watch what you say, but getting inappropriate group chats is a normal thing, but maybe not calling black people watermelon people. Like I said edgy shit in group chats when I was 16, 17 years old. Maybe it bled into 18, but this is just next level. And this is leaders of young Republicans groups. So
leaders of the young Republican groups throughout the country worried that what would happen if their Telegram chat ever got leaked, but they kept typing away. They referred to black people as monkeys and the watermelon people and mused about putting their political opponents in gas chambers. They talked about raping their enemies and driving them to suicide, and lauded Republicans who they believed really supported slavery. William Hendricks, the Kansas Young Republicans vice chair, used the N-word with a G-A, the N-word with a G-U-H at the end, variations of the racial slur more than a dozen times in the chat. Bobby Walker, the vice chair of the New York State Young Republicans at the time, referred to rape as epic. Peter Gayunta, who at the time was chair of the same organization, wrote in a message sent in June that everyone that votes no is going into the gas chamber. Gayunta was referring to an upcoming vote on whether he should become chair of the Young Republicans National Federation, the GOP's 1,500-member political organization for Republicans between 18 and 40. These are not just young kids. It's 18 to 40. Oh, just some college kids being college kids, I guess. I'm going to create some of the greatest psychological torture methods known to man. We only want true believers, he continued. 2 members of the chat responded. This is messages and response. Ready? Everyone that votes no is going to the gas chamber, and everyone that endorsed but then votes for us is going to the gas chamber. When do we start bullying, dude? We have a solid 3 people who can probably have them want to jump. If they vote for us, why would they be gassed? When do we bring that side out? I'm going to create some of the greatest psychological torture methods known to man. We only want true believers. Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the Hitler aesthetic. I'm ready to watch people burn now. We got to pretend like we like them. Hey, come on in, take a nice shower and relax. Then boom, they're dead. Can we fix the showers? Gas chambers don't fit the aesthetic. Joe Maligno, who previously identified himself as the general counsel for the New York State Young Republican, wrote back. He's a lawyer. I'm ready to watch people burn now. Anna K. Katie, New York's National Committee member, said, the exchange is part of a trove of Telegram chats attained by Politico and spanning more than 7 months of messages among the young Republican leaders in New York, Kansas, Arizona, and Vermont. The chat offers an unfiltered look at how the new generation of GOP activists talk when they think no one is listening. Since Politico began making inquiries, one member of the group chat is no longer employed at their job, and another's job offer was rescinded. Prominent New York Republicans, including Rep. Elise Stefanik and the state Senate Minority Leader, Rob Ort, have denounced the chat, and festering resentments among young Republicans have now turned into public recriminations, including allegations of character assassination and extortion. The 2,900 pages of chat shared among the dozen millennial and Gen Z Republicans between early January and mid-August chronicle their campaign to seize control of the National Young Republican Organization on a hardline pro-Donald Trump platform. Many of the chat members already work inside the government or party politics, and one serves as a state senator. Together, the message reveal a culture where racist, anti-Semitic, and violent rhetoric circulate freely, and where Trump-era loosening of political norms has made such talk feel less taboo among those positioning themselves as the party's next leader. By the way, one of them's a state senator. J.D. Vance is like, I'm not interested in some college chat. because that's what they've been told is the way to downplay it. The more the political atmosphere is open and liberating, like it has been with the emergence of Trump and more right-wing GOP even before him, it opens up young people and older people to telling racist jokes, making racist commentaries in private and in public, said Joe Fagin, a Texas A&M sociology professor who has studied racism for the last 60 years. He's also concerned the words would be applied to public policy. It's chilling, of course, because they will act on these views. The dynamic of easy racism and casual cruelty played out in often dark, vivid fashion inside the chats, where campaign talk and party gossip blurred into streams of slurs and violent fantasies. The group chat members spoke freely about the pressure to cow to Trump to avoid being called a rhino, the love of Nazis within their party's right wing, and the president's alleged work to suppress documents related to wealthy financier Jeffrey Epstein. Even they're joking like, Trump's too busy right now burning all the Epstein files. That was a chair of the Kansas Young Republicans wrote that. Trump is too busy burning the Epstein files. Multiple members declined to comment. Maligno and Hendricks did not return requests for comment, but some involved in the chat did respond publicly. Giunta claimed the release of the chat is part of a highly coordinated year-long character assassination led by Gavin Wax and the New York City Young Republican Club, an allusion to a once obscured war that has now spilled into the streets. These logs were sourced by way of extortion and provided to Politico by the very same people conspiring against me, he said. What's more disheartening is that despite my unwavering support of President Trump's 2016, rogue members of his administration, including Gavin Wax, have participated in this conspiracy to ruin me publicly simply because I challenged them privately. They didn't make you write any of this, dude. Wax, a staffer in Trump's State Department, formerly led the New York Young Republicans Club, a separate city-based group that is at odds with the state organization, the New York State Young Republicans. He declined to comment. Despite his allusions to infighting, Giunta still apologized. I'm so sorry for those offended by the insensitive and inexcusable language found within the more than 28,000 messages of a private chat that I created during my campaign to lead the Young Republicans, he said. While I take complete responsibility, I have no way of verifying their accuracy and am deeply concerned that the message logs in question may have been deceptively doctored. At least one person in Telegram chat works in the Trump administration, Michael Bartels, who, according to his LinkedIn account, serves as a senior advisor in the Office of General Counsel within the U.S. Small Business Administration. Bartels did not have much to say in the chat, but he didn't offer any pushback against offensive rhetoric in it either. He declined to comment. A notarized affidavit signed by Bartels and obtained by Politico also shed some light on intra-party rivalry that led this war room chat to be made public. Bartels references Wax as well. He wrote that he did not give Politico the chat and that Wax demanded in a phone call that he provide the full chat log. When I attempted to resist that demand, after providing some of the requested information, Wax threatened my professional standing and raised the possibility of potential legal action related to an alleged breach of non-disclosure agreement. Bartels claimed in the affidavit, my position within the New York Young Republican Club was directly threatened. Walker, who now leads the New York State Young Republicans, touched on a similar theme, saying that what he believes portions of the chat may have been altered, taken out of context, or otherwise manipulated, and that the private exchanges were obtained and released in a way clearly intended to inflict harm. Yes, and it should. That should inflict harm. When you say things like that, harm should be inflicted. He also apologized. There's no excuse for the language and tone of message attributed to me. The language is wrong and hurtful, and I sincerely apologize, Walker said. This has been a painful lesson about judgment and trust, and I'm committed to moving forward with greater care, respect, and accountability in everything I say and do. They're very Groyper-esque, I guess would be the way to say it. The slurs were used 251 times. The F slur, retarded, the N word appeared more than 251 times combined. In one instance, Walker, who at the time was a staffer for Ort, talked about how mutual friend of some in the chat dated this very obese Indian woman for a period of time. Giunte responded, that woman was not Indian. She just didn't bathe very often. In a separate conversation, Giunte shared that his flight to Charleston, South Carolina landed safely. Then he offered some advice for his fellow young Republicans. If your pilot is a she and she looks 10 shades darker than someone from Sicily, just end it there. Scream the no word. Just scream the N-word. If your pilot's black and a female, just scream the N-word so you don't die in a plane crash. And even with all this, the vice president asked about it. And he's like, I'm more worried about these texts over here than some college chat. Why not just say, yeah, that's fucked up. They shouldn't have said that. That's all it takes. They shouldn't be talking like that in private or in public. That's it. It's over. We're fucking cooked, chat. Anyways, I guess thank you guys for joining us. If you want to support the stream, do it at buymeacoffee.com/coldbeer. I got to buy some parts for the Ranger. I've been trying to do more mechanical stuff and work stuff on TikTok. If you want to follow me there, that's cool. If they're short enough, I'm going to post them on YouTube Shorts. But I think the limit for YouTube Shorts is 3 minutes, and some of my videos are like the 10-minute TikTok videos. I'm not good at like super short content, obviously, but either ways. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for being here. Thanks for hanging out with me, I guess. Everything's fucked, and I don't know what to do about it. But I'm still here. I'm glad you guys are still here, too. Thank you guys for joining us. We'll see you on the next one. Have a good night. Love you. See you. Bye. Oh, tomorrow. I might not be here tomorrow. No, not tomorrow. Day after tomorrow. My sister's getting married. So I probably won't do a show that night because it's like an evening wedding. So shout out to my sister for getting married.
Who they are and tell them the rest of the
That'll be Thursday.
forking balls. You don't have balls.
Have a good night, guys.
Okay, Scott.
Here we go, I think I started some
I don't know. Everything's so fucked right now, dude.
Get the place in the bench, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bench, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. And they say that I'm a lunatic. Well, listen, bitch, I came equipped with a quick wit and a 6th sense for the stupid shit. Where my true believer? Y'all need Jesus. Praise the Lord, head to the extreme. All these false fucking prophets who profit off of gossip. Worshipping drums, cocking, begging for a throat deposit. Swinging fucking meat hammers like four in a thong. He's strapped to the shaft, beating his chest like he's King Kong. Starving for attention, I'ma make your gut burst. I'll be your huckleberry, I can quench that thirst. Baby eating lizard people, alien sex. What's next? Trump in a dress, fucking Flynn on his desk. A retard in a...
Thanks again for the donation, Q Idiot. Appreciate it.
You told him if he did, he'd get fucking superpowers. Here we go, I think I started some shit. Piss them off, it's about to get lit. Get the place in the bench, you know that stage is set. You better buckle up, cause you ain't seen none yet. Here we go, I think...
Good night, guys.
Shit.